And Ron, just so you know how we usually do things, we usually start with a little art show of art that's been inspired by the Parsha. And I think I've got that going. Good. So let me get that off the screen. And we are Parsha Naso, and about midway through Naso, the traditional priestly blessing is introduced, and a lot of the art inspired by the Parsha highlights that blessing and the ritual traditionally associated with it. This woodcut is from Shefa Tal, a Kabbalistic text published in 1612 and still in print today. An introduction to Kabbalah by Prague Rabbi Shabtai Sheftel ben Akiva Halevi Horovitz. It includes his commentary and analysis of writings by previous Kabbalists and the Zohar. The priestly blessing woodcut portrays the hands formed for the blessing, divided into 28 sections, each containing a Hebrew letter. 28 in Hebrew numerology spells the word koach, strength. And the holy name, Yud-He Vav-He, is formed by the letters at the base of the hands when they are held together. Also from the 1600s, this is the coat of arms for the Rappaports of Italy, a rare example of a Jewish symbol of heraldry. They settled in the Mantua region after Jews were expelled from their hometown of Mainz in Germany, and the name is believed derived from Rofe, a Hebrew word for doctor, and their new home in Porto, Italy. The hands of the priestly blessing on their coat of arms identifies them as Kohanim. The Rappaport family included some of the most famous venerated rabbis in Renaissance Europe, as well as becoming the namesake for a famous dairy restaurant on 2nd Avenue in New York City centuries later. I think same name, it could be cousins. This illustration from around the end of the 19th century is from the Brockhaus and Ephron Encyclopedic Dictionary, an 86-volume work published in Imperial Russia between 1890 and 1907. The drawing of Aaron in his high priest outfit is true to the Torah description, but his hands are not in the familiar gesture that we associate with the Birkat Kohanim. This contemporary work from Illumination of Blessings by Chicago-born sofer and illustrator Eileen Wynne Lederer does show the hands in the positions that we're familiar with, and she explains that now familiar position comes from Solomon's Song of Songs, which says that though God remains hidden, he peers through the cracks in the wall, watching over and protecting Israel. She also points out that the Birkat contains 15 words corresponding to the 14 joints of the fingers and the palms of the hands to represent the word shalom, and she marks the joints of the hands with Hebrew letters signifying the numbers 1 to 15. She also includes an interpretation of the high priest's breastplate with its 12 precious stones, one for each of the tribes of Israel that were receiving the blessing. This is a ceramic piece by Israeli Judaica artist Amir Rom, a graduate of the Bezalel Academy of Art. He opened his Art in Clay studio in Jerusalem 15 years ago, featuring his handmade ceramics of blessings and Torah verses, often including classic symbols such as the pomegranate motif in this plaque. And also from Israel, one of the artists we feature regularly, English-born Darius Gilmont, has the Birkat as the centerpiece of his Naso painting from his Torah art series. Darius depicts not just Aaron, but also 2 of his sons, hands formed for the blessing before the gathered Israelites, his style and choice of colors bringing a sense of joy to the solemn experience. But there is more to Naso than the priestly blessing. After all, it is the longest parsha in the Torah. From the Women of the Book collection of original pieces by 54 Jewish women artists from around the world, Naso is depicted by India-born American artist Siona Benjamin, who chooses the Sotah, the woman accused of adultery, who must undergo a physical test, the only such exercise in the Torah, to establish her innocence or guilt. Explaining her motivation, the artist asks, "But why must only a woman endure such a trial? What of male adulterers? Who but men would do this to a woman? And whose parsha is it anyway?" She says in her version, the Sotah, unscathed and untouched, emerges triumphant as she endures the excruciating test and proves her strength and infinite endurance. Born in Bombay and now living in New Jersey, Siona Benjamin grew up in the Indian Jewish community, and her art frequently portrays blue-skinned women amid traditional cultural images of her predominantly Hindu and Muslim homeland.
These blue-skinned women are not inspired by any god or goddess, whether it's Hindu or Muslim or Buddhist. But it is inspired by all of these because I come from Indian culture, and so I'm influenced by my surroundings. At the same time, I was raised in a very monotheistic religion. And so how do I make art that is using this imagery without actually it being some sort of idol worship? I did for many years a series of paintings which is called Finding Home. I talked about issues of identity and immigration. What is home? Where is home? Is India home? Is Israel home because my family is gone there? Is America home now? My work is very theatrical, and they are platforms of these characters acting and dancing and working out questions of what is happening in the socio-political world, of me being Indian, Jewish, and American.
The art of Siona Benjamin, whose work is featured in Women of the Book. Parsha Naso also describes the Nazarite vow, including the commandment that those who take it are forbidden to have wine or grapes or anything produced from them. Another of our contemporary regulars, Huntsville, Alabama artist and educator Star Weems, spotlights those plump, juicy grapes that they can't eat in the Naso watercolor from her Ancient Illumination series of paintings, one for each Parsha. But probably the best-known requirement of the vow is avoiding the barber, and that leads to the best-known Nazarite, the powerful and vengeful Samson, whose story is in the Haftarah that usually accompanies Naso. Here he is, about to get that fateful haircut from his lovers and betrayer, Delilah, as painted by 17th century Flemish master Peter Paul Rubens, who shows a well-muscled Samson asleep against the breast of the Rubenesque Delilah as her helper clips the strong man's flowing locks. Peering through the doorway over on the right, the Philistines stand by waiting to take him prisoner once his hair, the source of his great strength, is lopped off. This is a 1902 painting by pioneering German realist Max Liebermann. He studied in France, where Impressionists became a major influence, and spent time in Italy and the Netherlands before returning to his native Berlin. He became a noted portrait painter, his subjects ranging from Albert Einstein to German President Hindenburg, the latter as the Nazis were rising to power, and the selection of a Jewish artist to paint the president outraged them. He responded, "I'm just a painter. What does painting have to do with Judaism?" Liebermann died in 1935, and many of his works, as well as paintings by others in his extensive collection, were looted during the Nazi years, hundreds of them still listed as missing. And this is Samson and Delilah by Erte, the Russian-born artist known as the father of Art Deco. Erte's muscular giant of a Samson is not just shorn, but shaven, shackled with delicate chains held by the sly Delilah. Erte also created metal sculptures of the image, with Samson in bas-relief and Delilah, her chains standing out. Born in St. Petersburg, he moved to Paris at age 19 and began his storied career taking the pseudonym Erte from the initials of his given name, Roman de Tirtov. His works ranged from production design for extravagant shows at Radio City Music Hall, the Casino de Paris, and the Paris Opera. He created fashions and gowns for renowned actresses and dancers, Pavlova, Joan Crawford, Lillian Gish, Marion Davies, and his long relationship with Harper's Bazaar yielded hundreds of distinctive covers for the magazine. And since Erte was well known in showbiz circles, we can't leave out the Hollywood version.
There are too many lies between us. You still fear me more than you love me.
I don't fear you enough.
Victor Mature and Eddie Lamar.
You don't trust me enough.
I love you enough.
Headlining Cecil B. DeMille's 1949 epic Samson and Delilah. I love how Samson has a New York accent in this version. Maybe the original action hero movie, and the Samson story from the Haftarah, originally read along with Parsha Naso, and that is our art for this week.
Wasn't Hedy Lamarr also an inventor? Invented what became radar and Wi-Fi and all this other stuff?
Yes,
And
Hedy Lamarr.
Bluetooth.
Yes.
We have cell phones because of her patents,
There's
exactly.
there's a great PBS
Be a bombshell, the
uh
documentary Bombshell.
is that what it was called? I forget, it's part
Yes.
of American Experience or
Yeah.
American Masters. I forget which one, even
Yeah.
though she was originally from Hungary, but she was a lot more than the pretty face.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Yeah. The whole frequency hopping that she developed for to make the torpedoes, the radio guided torpedoes, work, is what led to cell phones. So it's amazing. Yeah. Oh, Marilyn is on. That's good. Just in time for the Mishaberach.
Good,
So-
because I totally need one. I tore my toenail off. What do you call it? Tripped on a table, and I had to go have my toenail removed yesterday. So of course they pump you full of lidocaine, and the doctor did a great job. And he said, "Oh, just a couple of days, it's going to be great." Well, the lidocaine has worn off, and I can take a lot of pain, but this is beyond. So I'm here. That's all I can
No.
tell you. Thank you.
We'll definitely have to include you and Sarah. We'll make sure that you're. And I think Arnie, even though you said there wasn't physical injury, there's, I'm sure, a lot of angst and anxiety from what you went through with the earthquake.
Yeah.
So everybody on screen gets a sense of that, I'm sure. And anybody who wants to mention other names, please do.
Yeah. Kids. Carolyn, I'm sure I'm driving her crazy. She's running all my errands to the drugstore.
Sherry and Alice, my sister Chaya. Anybody else who's not expressing their aches and pains, but needs a little jolt,
Yeah.
probably including me.
Ray Wofford, Mary Bissell,
Sorry.
Steve Winningham.
Fred Horowitz, and there's also a lady, an Israeli woman that I follow on YouTube, and her son just committed suicide about a month ago. She's
Yeah.
really, really beyond sad. So I don't even know her
I mean,
name.
I could give you a card, but they're not going to. They won't let you use it.
A card for what? I don't know what you're talking about, but anyway, I don't know her name, but her son's name was Tomar, and he was only 17. And about a month before he committed suicide, maybe a couple months before, their house nearby was hit by a missile. And although their apartment wasn't severely damaged, the building, other people's apartments were, and the building, the structure was compromised, so they had to move out. So I don't know if that added to his distress or what, but anyway, yeah.
There are a lot of people going through pain from the impacts of what's happening too. So I think they need to be included as well in our thoughts. So, Ruthellen,
Okay, ready?
please.
I want to also ask for my daughter and granddaughter are on the mainland, and they're going a little nuts. Really stressful times for them because there's nobody left around there where they used to live. That none of Rachel's friends are still there, so they're on their own and without having a place to be. They just drove down to Orange County to stay at my friend's house, just because they're going to be driving back and forth to LA for a while. So she's jumping out of her.
Marilyn, what were they impacted by that?
No, they weren't near it. No, they went after, and they would have gone down the 5 instead of the 405. They would have missed it. I saw it on the news and was ready for that. Horrible.
No, my cousin lived not even 5 miles away, but fortunately the wind was blowing in the other direction, so she
Yeah,
didn't even have to be evacuated. But
right. We should pray for them too, because that is a big
yeah,
mess. Thank
well,
God they were able to
those are
escalate it.
de-escalate it. Yeah, they let everybody go back home. So if people weren't following that, there's a plant. I forgot what they make. They use this some kind of plastic, and they have a storage tank of this chemical. Yeah,
Yeah, gas. It's
that
bad news.
that got too hot. But anyways, I think in general we need to go back to the keep it simple principle.
Yeah, really.
But in the meantime, in between time,
Sing.
we'll use we'll use we'll use any energy that we have to try to promote the good.
Amen.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Imotenu, the core habracha, Imotenu, bless those in of healing, with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ruth Ellen. So everybody, if you want to unmute, and we'll say the bracha together.
Baruch
Baruch
atah
atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam
asher
asher keshanu b'mitzvotav
b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu
v'tzivanu
la'asot
lasot
divrei
divrei Torah.
Torah. Amen. So we have the longest parsha in the Torah, and I'm going to take a prerogative. There's some repetition in there, so we may jump over some of that repetition when we get to it. But we have some a couple of sizable readings and a couple of short ones, depending on where we are. So the first one's a little bit long, about 28 lines. So I don't know who has good breath control
I'm
right now.
warmed up. I'm warmed
You're
up,
warmed
so I'll
up?
start.
Okay, so if you
Because
want to go ahead
I,
and...
for some reason, I am having trouble staying awake the last 3 days. So I think I'm getting used to new allergens in my. I hope it passes quickly. And Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, take a census of the Gershonites also by their ancestral house and by their clans. Record them from the age of 30 years up to the age of 50, all who are subject to service in the performance of tasks for the tent of meeting. These are the duties of the Gershonite clans as to labor and porterage. They shall carry the cloths of the tabernacle, the tent of meeting with its covering, the covering of dolphin skin that is on top of it, and the screen for the entrance of the tent of meeting, the hangings of the enclosure, the screen at the entrance of the gate of the enclosure that surrounds the tabernacle, the cords thereof, and the altar, and all their service equipment, and all their accessories, and they shall perform the service. It just hit me. No wonder so many Jewish people are accountants. All the duties of the Gershonites, all their porterage, and all their service shall be performed on orders from Aaron and his sons. You shall make them responsible for attending to all their porterage. Those are the duties of the Gershonite clans for the tent of meeting. They shall attend to them under the direction of Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest. As for the Merarites, you shall record them by the clans of their ancestral house, and you shall record them from the age of 30 years up to the age of 50, all who are subject to service in the performance of the duties for the tent of meeting. These are the porterage tasks in connection with the various duties for the tent of meeting, the planks, the bars, the posts, and the sockets of the tabernacle. The posts around the enclosure and their sockets, pegs and cords, all these furnishings and their service. You shall list by name the objects that are their porterage tasks. Those are the duties of the Merarite clans pertaining to their various duties in the tent of meeting under the direction of Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest. So Moshe, Aaron, and the chieftains of the community recorded the Kohathites by the clans of their ancestral house from the age of 30 years up to the age of 50, all who were subject to service for work relating to the tent of meeting. Those recorded by their clans came to 2,750. That was the enrollment of the Kohathite clans. All those who performed duties relating to the tent of meeting, whom Moshe and Aaron recorded at the command of Adonai through Moshe. The Gershonites, who were recorded by the clans of their ancestral house from the age of 30 years up to the age of 50, all who were subject to service for work relating to the tent of meeting. Those recorded by the clans of their ancestral house came to 2,630. That was the enrollment of the Gershonite clans, all those performing duties relating to the tent of meeting, whom Moshe and Aaron recorded at the command of Adonai. The enrollment of the Merarite clans by the clans of their ancestral house from the age of 30 years up to the age of 50, all who were subject to service for work relating to the tent of meeting. Those recorded by the clans of their ancestral house came to 3,200. That was the enrollment of the Merarite clans, which Moshe and Aaron recorded at the command of Adonai through Moshe. All the Levites whom Moshe, Aaron, and the chieftains of Israel recorded by the clans of their ancestral houses from the age of 30 years up to the age of 50, all who were subject to service for work relating to the tent of meeting, and those recorded came to 8,580. Each one was given responsibility for his service and porterage at the command of God through Moshe, and each was recorded as God had commanded Moshe.
So another census. What is this, about the fourth one, I think, since leaving Egypt?
Yeah.
And I when I hear this and hear the description, I don't know if you've ever done genealogical research. One of the things you can look at are the census reports or the census forms, the raw forms that were taken by the census worker who would knock on the door and say, "Let me get the information. Who lives in your household?" and whatever. And that's been lost to history. All we know is the number. We don't know if they actually collected them in that regard, and how many lived in which tent and things like that. I can only imagine it was something similar. Arnie?
Yeah, I was just thinking, in the last census was for military duty, and it started younger. So this responsibility, went to older people. And I was just wondering, it's because it's a different type of responsibility, which is kind of funny. I mean, you could go fight when you're younger, but to move some poles, you got to be older or something. I don't know.
That's true. 30 to 50, is that the age range, I think?
Yeah, it's 30 to
So,
50 for this job, but it was much
maturity.
younger for the bearing arms
But
group.
now I have a question, mostly maybe because it started the census, the other clans in the parsha before this, I guess, because this one seems to be only the Levites. Am I wrong? Or
Yes, right.
so
And
it's
these are the ones,
only
and
the
they weren't
Levites
counted, in the
counted.
military censuses.
Now I just read over one of Rabbi Sachs's former essays saying, wait, this is Naso. We're on Naso, right? He
Right.
said it's Naso is not the standard, does not use the most common form of the word to count from Hebrew. This has to do with lifting one's head, saying that it's all symbolic, and it's not really for practical purpose so much as to imply that Hashem is enumerating each individual because each individual is precious to Hashem and has equal value. But even then, I thought he was talking about a universal census, which is not this one. And I don't know if we gotten to that one yet. There is one when there is one, right, where they do include women and everybody. Am I wrong about that? I don't know.
I'm not sure if there's
getting
one
a
that
little
the women were
confused.
included. That's a good question, because this one was very specifically men,
Yeah.
even though women participated in creating the objects that they were storing and then having to get out. And that's another image that I have of how you have a workshop with you have different size screws and drawers. So they must have had some way to store all of these things so that they could get to them and find them, or the way you lived on a sailboat for a while, you know how you have to keep the sails stored a certain
God.
way, so that if you need to get the spinnaker out, you know where it is and pull it out. So
Although I wouldn't think about this being like a modern day American census, because remember, we keep saying they're still in the wilderness. This is something happening immediately for an immediate purpose, I think, as opposed to, I guess maybe it's later when they announce. When do they announce where each region, where each tribe is going to be land that's allocated? I can
yeah, that's
imagine
coming. I
that.
think that's coming
That's
the
yeah.
last parsha. Yeah, but I think that's an interesting point that you bring up, is that we've had so many other things where they were looking ahead, as Aviva likes to point out, Laman, in order that we may live in the land that's been promised. But in this case, it's for the purpose of the Mishkan, which is meant to be assembled when they make camp, and then disassembled when they're moving on. So it's not going to be a permanent
Holy roadies.
assignment. Holy rollers.
Oh, I said
The
holy roadies, right? Yeah,
holy
it's like
rotors,
holy
roadies rather. That's
roadies.
good. That's good. Right. Where do we put the amps? Right. But this really relates to the activities that are necessary to keep the community going in the wandering, not necessarily in. It has to be translated into something that's a more permanent thing when they're living in a place and not moving from place to place.
Well,
We.
you
That's
got
why I go back to
thousands of
Rabbi
people.
Sachs.
Oh,
Sorry,
I was just
Arnie.
going to say that there was thousands of people to do each task.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But considering the numbers we had before, 8,600 is not that many. We were in the hundreds of thousands with the military census.
Yeah, there must have been more young people than middle agers.
I know. I just had a chance to skim over the Rabbi Sachs, which I haven't done for a long time, right before we started. So I skimmed. That's why I was 2 minutes late. And he talks about one of them saying that there were 670,000. That was the one that happened when we were leaving Egypt. So I don't know why. I guess he's talking about censuses in general in the Torah, I think, in this drash, even though this one seems to be particularly focused on one intention. Now, one interesting thing that he did point out that seems to relate to this is the idea that the notion of a census, the way we think of it, and that started when at the rise of cities and agricultural civilizations, and also civilizations that where power structures were formed. This was a way for the leadership to have control over the masses so as to be able to count them, who was available for war and who was available to pay taxes. And that is antithesis, anathema to what a census by Hashem would be, which is what this is.
Now, with the extreme.
Who broke up there?
Not sure. Not sure who was. I think somebody was speaking to somebody else and muted himself.
But this The screen went to Craig, so I don't know, but it didn't turn green. So I don't know if Craig, because he sometimes has connection problems. But even though we see him. Yeah, anyway, so yeah, it's there's a difference in the flavor of it, so to speak, and I think that's maybe one of the main things that we're supposed to take away from it.
The other thing that strikes me in reading this is the names of these clans, the Kohathites and the Gershonites and all of the other the ones that were mentioned. We don't have those names didn't get carried on. We don't know. We know we're a Levi, we know we're a Kohen, we know we're a Yisrael, but we don't know that whether we're a Kohathite or a Gershonite, or what were the Merarites was another one of them.
I think
And
it's
that
carried on through names, though. I mean, I've known several Gershons in my life, and Mark Maron, the comedian. I mean, I think that they have descendants.
so those names are connected to
Maybe, yeah.
could be. Let's see, I'm just trying to. I'm looking at the notices, the notes in the Alter translation.
Both for me.
And
Gershon, yeah, I had a cousin by marriage whose name was Gershon, but I think he went by Jerry. But that's where I think because that's one I had never heard. But that's one of Aaron's sons. No, not Aaron. It's one of Levi's sons, I believe.
One of the things that is mentioned in the notes here is that even though this is distinguished from the census that was for the purpose of military service, they do use the Hebrew word for army in it, tzava, and it has a secondary meaning of service. And in this context, it's reminded that the Levites' service was equivalent to fulfilling military obligations. So I wonder if some of the Orthodox who are trying to keep out of the military in Israel are using that as one of their basis, one of their arguments. It could be.
Good point.
Could be related. Is service. It's sort of like when during the Vietnam era when you could if you went into if you were a doctor and you could go into the public health service and avoid being drafted by serving
all
for
those
2 years.
Haredi, those people are not all necessarily Kohanes, even if they could want to trace themselves. And then
good point.
So
good point.
yeah,
That's
but
right.
who knows who knows what arguments they might
right exactly, and yeah,
whether they work or not is a different story.
Well, things get a little bit. I don't know, spicier now as we get to the next part of Naso. So we have a relatively short reading, just 10 lines for this next one. So if I can get a volunteer.
I'll do it.
Okay, let me get up on screen.
And God spoke to Moses, saying, instruct the Israelites to remove from the camp anyone with an eruption or a discharge, and anyone defiled by a corpse. Remove male and female alike. Put them outside the camp, so that they do not defile the camp of those in whose midst I dwell. The Israelites did so, putting them outside the camp, as Adonai had spoken to Moses, and the Israelites did. And God spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelites when men or women individually commit any wrong toward a fellow human being, thus breaking faith with God, and they realize their guilt, they shall confess the wrong that they have done, and they shall make restitution in the principal amount and add 1/5 to it, giving it to the one who is wronged. If that party, if deceased and has no kin to whom restitution can be made, the amount repaid shall go to Adonai for the priest, in addition to the ram of expiation with which expiation is made on their behalf. So too, any gift among the sacred donations that the Israelites offer shall be the priest's, and each shall retain the sacred donation. Each priest shall keep what is given to him. Wow.
Yeah, this is, I think it doesn't really describe what the wrongs are. So I think that raises a lot of questions, although we have it, it starts with that specific issue of an eruption or a discharge or anyone defiled by a corpse. And before, we had people who were part of the Kohanim and the Levites who were going to be doing these sacred ceremonies, so they were prevented from doing that until they had done a cleanse themselves of that. But in this case, it's everybody. So this idea of being defiled by being in contact with a corpse or having some bodily function that that is considered, and that's again not really defined. So
Well, look what's happening now with Ebola and everything else, and what we all went through with COVID. I mean, this is the first public health doctrine, and it's a good one.
But is an eruption, could it be, I mean, you could have a pimple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they probably most likely meant staph or impetigo, though.
Yeah, but you have
Those
no way
things.
to know that because it doesn't
No, of course
say.
not.
Well, we need our Hebrew scholar to know what Hebrew
Yeah.
word you use for eruption. It probably
I mean,
didn't need exactly the same thing.
Staph and impetigo present a lot more than just a tiny whatever, I mean, a pimple is not a big deal, but staph and impetigo both show that they're not to be messed with. I mean, they're not little.
Right.
When we first moved to the island, there were all these people who were fruitarians. They didn't eat anything but fruit, basically, that they could get off the trees. And many, many of them were also alcoholics, and the high sugar content, any little wound got infected, and staph was rampant here. I mean, rampant. It was like a plague. You had to really be careful who touched you. I mean, doesn't sound good, but it's true. It was all over the place. But you can see it. It's not something that is invisible.
I think it's interesting that this is paired with the formula for making good or for
Giving.
yeah, when you've betrayed someone or done something to harm them, that there's a certain amount plus 20% that gets added as an interesting formula. But the fact that they're combined in this one section, I think, is curious, because on the one hand, you do have the health issue that you're talking about, but we're always warned not to apply our modern medical knowledge to what was going on at the time that this was written. And the point that the Alter makes in the notes with his translation is that these categories are cultic, not moral, that pathology and death are viewed as contaminants, and the camp of Israel in the wilderness, in which God's presence dwells in the tabernacle, must be kept free of these contaminants. So even though they're not the ones doing, the people who are contaminated are not the ones doing the ceremonies, if they're in the community, they're...
Because that stuff is contagious.
Yeah, well, but again, it's the whole community that's affected then, exactly.
I noticed that 20%, until recently, that was considered usury.
Mm-hmm. But this is
like
not
a hallmark number.
But this in this case wasn't lending. This was paying back some to make up for some.
The Republican Party of Colorado has called for all pride flags to be burned in addition to other attacks on the LGBT.
I don't know what we're hearing.
penalty.
That is something with Craig because he's listening to something in Colorado.
There we go. Okay.
20% was the penalty. The initial
pen-
amount was the amount that was owed because it's what you borrowed. And then the rest was a penalty for some.
Well, this is not borrowed. This is you caused something. You caused
Okay,
you
right.
did.
Okay,
Yeah, so
right.
you're being punished, but or this is your payment to atone for
Yeah,
what you've done.
but I thought the initial cost was like an actual cost. If some, did I read it wrong?
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. Then and then plus
Like
20%,
20.
and of course the priests get their take if there's nobody to get that 20%.
It's hilarious. I mean, this is Yehuda would have a 15-minute, you know,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
loves to, defame the priests,
Yeah. Arnie, you've got your hand up.
Oh, no, I just didn't lower it. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
I just looked up in Safaria what they meant by eruption, and they referred back to Leviticus 13 and 15, which is when they talked about going to Aaron, whether the rupture had a hair on it, so it's akin to what they called leprosy, whatever that was. That's what they meant. But with regard to this, it's one of those reading between the lines, because this is not necessarily saying like a restitution from a court of law. This is somebody who like made a mistake, that the people are coming forward who wronged somebody else. It's not clear whether they're forced into this by some civic action, or they just were doing the honorable thing.
Well, it could
And
be all of it, right? I mean,
but here I think they're focusing more that it's voluntary.
yeah.
And again, this might be like the eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth kind of thing, that it's putting actually the ruling here is to put a limit on how far someone could ask for retribution from someone who has done a wrong to them, especially if it was unintentional.
Mm-hmm. But that the restitution needs to be made, that
Yeah.
it's established in there.
You don't
that
ignore it,
it's
but it
codified.
shouldn't be outrage. It's almost like compared to what's going on now, suing for $1 billion because
Yeah. But the
not
first
to
part
get
is the
political,
actual
but
cost.
it's more like, when they sue for damages, they say like for what do they call it? Like if somebody's harmed in an accident, it's the physical damages, and then there's the
Mental
pain and
pain and
suffering kind of
suffering, yeah.
thing.
But I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
let's say you hurt somebody's cow. Okay. So the cow has a price. So that price is paid because it has a price. You injured the cow, which we could call it the car. And then there's the other part of which is the
Which
pain.
kind of pays the opportunity costs lost by the victim.
It's out of service. If I hurt your cow, you can't necessarily use it the way you were, and you certainly can't breed it.
And still, this is one of these places where I don't know, we could read too much into how this thing was edited, because it happens in Leviticus and it happens here. It's quite frustrating. I don't think I'm ever going to be the kind of Torah scholar that was going to go to the minutia of figuring out when this was codified and what the thinking was of the individuals charged with doing it, whoever they may be.
Yeah,
We're
but Ruth
supposed to
Ellen, it
assume that
actually didn't it set the example for how our system runs now? I mean, I'm not talking about the exorbitant or the crazy, but the fact that we do have a way to compensate or recompense, and then like it's not that you just don't pay back for something that you've damaged. You do, even if it isn't a legal matter. It's a moral matter. I mean, somebody could say,
but that's when Moshe is enumerating all the rules themselves, and they say that's one of the foundations for Western law, right? What I was talking about here is I was beyond that. I was talking about the idea that 1 minute we're talking about eruptions, and the next minute we're talking about restitution for doing a wrong.
Right.
And it's this jumping from things that seemingly don't seem to relate to each other directly, except to the degree that it's something Hashem is telling Moses to tell the people is important to do.
Yeah, exactly. Next
so
on the list, right?
Yeah.
Arnie?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that they mention it's a voluntary act that you go to this person you've wronged and you willingly give them recompense. I think that's the spiritual message here
Mm-hmm.
that you know, you weren't sued in the course of law like we do now. You went in voluntarily and did this. And I think that's admirable.
And
Yeah.
and to borrow Ruth Ellen's reference to the Mikado, they let the punishment fit the crime. That you're not going to wipe somebody out by saying this is you have to give them everything you have.
Yeah.
It's a fair amount of making up for whatever damage was done, plus a little extra to take care of mental anguish or whatever we want to call it. But it's not saying we're gonna just shut you down and take your business and take your tent and you'll be stuck with nothing.
Your
So I think
firstborn too.
yeah, right. Now that went away to the priests a while ago. Um, well, with the next part now is one of those sections that um, it's no fun. But let's go through it, and I think this is I know hackles are going to be up by this, and have to figure out why it's in here. But if we've got somebody who would like to read for a little bit,
I can read for a little bit. I'm having to
okay.
do this on my cell phone because for some reason my iPad has been scrolling around with that circle that goes when it's trying to load for a half an hour.
Uh,
It
the
hasn't done
the the spinning beach ball of
it.
death.
Yes,
This is
yes.
what we've been
So
doing.
we're going to use my iPhone because that's what's open. So,
Okay.
okay, I will
Okay.
try.
So here we go.
Okay. And God spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelite people and say to them, any party whose wife has gone astray and broken faith with him, in that another man has had carnal relations with her unbeknown to her husband. I'm having a hard time getting this in focus. And broken faith with him, in that, oh, I'm sorry, and another man has had carnal relations unknown to her husband, and she keeps a secret the fact that she has defiled herself without being forced, and there is no witness against her, but a fit of jealousy comes over him, and he is wrought up about his wife who has defiled herself, or if a fit of jealousy comes over him and he is wrought up about his wife, although she has not defiled herself, that party shall bring his wife to the priest, and he shall bring as an offering for her 1/10 of an ephah of barley flour. No oil shall be poured upon it, no frankincense shall be laid on it, for it is a meal offering of jealousy, a meal offering of remembrance, which recalls wrongdoing. The priest shall bring her forward and have her stand before Adonai. The priest shall take sacral water in an earthen vessel, and taking some of the earth that is on the floor of the tabernacle, on the floor, sorry, of the tabernacle, the priest shall put into the water. After he has made the woman stand before the Lord, the priest shall bear the woman's head and place upon her hands the meal offering of remembrance, which is a meal offering of jealousy. And in the priest's hands shall be the water of bitterness that induces the spell. The priest shall beseech the woman, saying to her, if no other party has lain with you, if you have not gone astray in defilement while living in your husband's household, be immune to harm from this water of bitterness that induces the spell. But if you have gone astray while living in your husband's household, and you have defiled yourself, if any party other than your husband has had carnal relations with you, here the priest shall administer the curse of adjuration to the woman, as the priest goes on to say to the woman, may Adonai make you a curse and an imprecation, I don't know what that means, among your people, as he cares for your thigh, causes your thigh to sag and your belly to distend. I'm sorry. May this water that induces the spell enter your body, causing the belly to distend and the thigh to sag. That's enough of a curse. And the woman shall say, Amen, Amen. The priest shall put these curses down in writing and rub it off into the water of bitterness. He is to make the woman drink the water of bitterness that induces the spell, so that the spell-inducing water may enter into her to bring on bitterness. Then the priest shall take from the woman's hand the meal offering of jealousy, elevate the meal offering before Adonai, and present it on the altar. The priest shall scoop out of the meal offering a token part of it and turn it into smoke on the altar. Last, he shall make the woman drink the water. Once he has made her drink the water, if she has defiled herself by breaking faith with her husband, the spell-inducing water shall enter into her to bring on bitterness, so that her belly shall distend and her thigh shall sag, and the wife shall become a curse among her people. But if the woman has not defiled herself and is pure, she shall be unharmed and able to retain seed. This is the ritual in cases of jealousy. When a woman goes astray while living in her husband's household and defiles herself, or when a fit of jealousy comes over a husband and he is wrought up over his wife, the woman shall be made to stand before the Lord, and the priest shall carry out all this ritual with her. The man shall be clear of guilt, but the woman shall suffer her guilt. I want to know why this is not written about both sexes. Why is only the woman put through this stuff if she has potentially gone astray? That is the only part that makes me furious.
And it's the man's fit of jealousy that brings it on, too. It's
and if you're married to a beautiful woman, men are crazy. So when they walk down the street and pass a pretty girl, they often do things that are, they have reactions. They say things that it has nothing to do necessarily with the woman's behavior. It has to do with what she looks like. And from there, she could have to go through this nonsense, 12 times a year.
The thing about this is that it's unique. There's nothing like it anywhere else in the Torah. I mean, we do have very specific rituals where some of the sacrifices are concerned and certain things to be done, but there's no test like this, and it seems bizarre and very I'm not sure, pagan may be the right word.
Pagan, third world, all of it.
Ron, I see you. Go ahead, Arnie, and then Ron after that.
Yeah, I was going to say it reminds me of the Salem witch trial stuff and the other stories you hear about what they used to do with women. We'll load you down with rocks and throw you in the river, and if you don't drown, you're innocent. So stuff like that. It's pretty horrifying, and a lot of it, works psychologically. So is what they're hoping. There's no physical thing that's going to make a reaction of the belly distending in the thighs. I mean, it's going to be what's ever in their head and how they, if they feel guilt, how they're going to react, right? And this is something that magicians use also. There's a classic trick where you ask a bunch of questions, and if you get a false answer, the person opens his hand and there's a black spot on their hand, and they don't know how it gets there, right? But, it's a trick. So, it kind of reminds me of that.
Ron, you had a comment.
Yeah, first the question, how do I put my hand up? I don't know how to do it. I can do it this way.
There should be a little button on the bottom of your screen that says react. And if it looks like a heart, and if you click on that, one of the choices is raise hand. So
okay, I got it. I can handle that one. Okay. I have just a general question how I'm looking at it as a big picture. Okay, not just where we're reading, but the big picture. Man sinned in Genesis. We have redemption. That's that main theme in Exodus. We get to worship, we get to Leviticus, it's worship. How do we walk with a holy God? Be holy as I'm holy. And he comes now to Numbers and he goes to Deuteronomy. And what I see here is they gotta again learn what is clean and unclean. They're now going into the promised land. Um, well, we know it's going to be roughly 40 years. And I want to read a passage from Deuteronomy. Um, and he's telling why, again, they had to go in the wilderness for 40 years. There's a lot of reasons, but he gives a basic reason here. And he humbled you, let you be hungry, and fed you with manna which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you understand that man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by everything that proceeds from the mouth of God. Now, that's the first thing he's teaching them in to prepare them for that promised land. But let me backtrack one verse 2. I should have started there. You should remember the way the Lord God has led you in the wilderness these 40 years, that he might humble you. Anyone here need to be humble? I do. Okay, we all struggle with that in some way. And he was testing them, and that you would know what's in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. And I think that's as pertinent for us today. And all these things is he's trying to teach us. He wants to walk with us, but he's a holy God. And we have to learn his ways. And sometimes we pick it apart, but he's going to repeat all through the Old Testament that we need to have our hearts circumcised. Cut away that flesh. That's, and certainly there's all kinds of little details, but I want to remember the big picture.
Well, it's interesting to me because I spent 20 years in the church as a Jew, but that was in my seeking years. And it's interesting because they found a solution for all of these problems, that you didn't have to do it anymore. You didn't have to worry about it anymore because now it was done by one individual who took away the need for it. But what I really enjoy about the fact that I have returned, I am sort of someplace in the middle, but where I love about Judaism is that you think about what you've done. You think about it makes you conscious. Like I have friends that have asked, people from before have asked me, why do I bother, going to synagogue for Yom Kippur? Because I long time ago had my sins eliminated. And I say, I need to go to do that so that I know what I'm doing on a daily basis. I need to know what my behavior that's amiss is, because I certainly don't have it in my consciousness 24/7. I just don't. We just go through life at a pace that makes us not aware necessarily at the moment of the things that we do that hurt somebody or are less than we could be, or prevent us from being close to God. And I'm blessed to be in the chair where I was born. Blessed.
Ruth Ellen, we have Ruth Ellen, and then Sarah, and then Ron.
I was reading some other stuff, and I was oh shucks, because it went back. Oh yeah. To Sarah's point, we go through this. To Marilyn's point, we go through this every year, that it seems so misogynistic and all that. But even if you wanted to say that there's some merit to doing this, then what really bothers me is if in fact the husband was wrong, if she passes the test, it says he's still on. He should hit for like a false accusation.
Something.
Bear false witness, right?
But maybe that's what you meant. I thought it was beyond. It was just, there's the two things. There's the accuser, as the husband being the accuser, and if it's just malicious and he's emotionally upset. And also there's the notion of of the husband being, what about the husband of well, it didn't say that the man she was having, presumably he had extramarital relations with, was also married. But if he was, why isn't the man just as guilty as the woman? And I think according to the thou shalt not commit adultery, it should apply to both, which is here again why I'm wondering if this is here. And Alan, I'm almost thinking this is like one of those things where the culture of the times somehow got infused in. I keep thinking back about all these people coming to Moshe when he had to get the judges to help him, because every little picky thing, well, what if this, if what if that, if what if this, if the delineation of every potential variation of an outcome based on an accusation has to be dealt with. And that's supposedly what the law is, why you're supposed to take the merit of every case on its own, because if you made the laws too specific, it would be ridiculous. First of all, it'd be ridiculous to enforce them, and it would be say, well, there's no allowing for extenuating circumstances or anything like that. So this just seems a little weird to me. Period.
It sticks out. I agree.
Yeah.
Sarah?
Well, first of all, thou shalt not commit adultery appears to have only applied to women, because Jewish men in those times, probably after the Ten Commandments, most of them did not have other wives, but some men in biblical times did have more than one wife. And certainly King David had many wives and many concubines. And it created a lot of problems for him in his household. And it wasn't until the Second Temple that the Sanhedrin ruled against this procedure of having the woman drink this concoction and go through this distended stomach and sagging thigh number. But men didn't have to go through any of that. So and the other thing that I was thinking of is that one of the reasons that they did that is because psychologically, once you mistrust your wife, just going through that procedure it doesn't restore your trust in her.
Or how about her feelings for you after you put her through that for no reason?
Exactly. You go back home and everything's going to be normal, and you're going to make dinner.
These emotions seldom change because of a procedure like that on both sides of the spectrum, on the man's side and the woman's side. This court thing doesn't really change that.
You don't think you would oversalt the soup a little bit, huh? I might.
I think that she would, disdain him, and he would still not trust her. And so I think we see that clearly during David's reign. And his whole trip with, killing whatever her name was,
Bathsheba's husband.
Bathsheba's husband.
And, I've also heard
Uriah, I think.
I've also heard that since he didn't directly kill him, he wasn't a murderer, even though he sent the guy to kill him because he didn't, so they have all these loopholes and things, but it's definitely a man's world and a paternalistic religion. And it's so that's what it is.
Yeah.
Ron?
Well, there are two things I want to address. The first thing, I don't remember who started after me, but I go back again to the Shema, that we're to love God with all of our heart, mind, soul, and strength. And love our neighbors, it will come in later. But the thing is, we're seeing unloving actions toward a wife, and this is why it has to be put in there. It's abuse of the man. First of all, it's so bad that it had to be recorded. And
I don't follow.
That's the first thing that I see there. And so our focus needs to be on really doing the right thing. It's not about a matter of, in this context, about forgiving sins. It's about doing what's right. We're going into a land, again, that is they're to destroy everyone in that land when they go in, because they had come to that point of no return. And then we're to be a light. That's how I see it. And maybe I'm off base, but I don't think so.
Arnie,
Wait.
you have some.
We're looking at things from, our own perspective because of our acculturation. But let's remember, back then, women were chattel. It was just common all over the world. And it didn't change much until recent modern history in most of the civilized world, because there was still dower rights in the 20th century and things like that were part of this custom that's been going on for millennium. If you look at a timeline of history of women's rights, I mean, it's just like flatlined. Then all of a sudden, just recently, it went whoop, and that's a perspective that I think we got to keep in mind. This was normal behavior back then. It's hard we're judging it, but here's something else I found really interesting. I was doing research on who was the first Jew to come to Kona. And so I found out most likely it was this guy, Joseph Lazarus, who got here in the maybe 1860, and he got a land grant award in South Kona, and you can look it up in the Great Mahele, which happened when King Kalakaua gave a third of the land to the commoners and kept 2/3 for himself. But he got this giant ahupua'a, thousands of acres in South Kona. And then the other thing I found out about him was he married a Hawaiian woman and they got a divorce. And when he died, she sued to get his land. It was a lawsuit with her son. And the court sided with the son because the land was in a trust. And she didn't have dower rights because of that, because the entity was not a husband and wife, but a trust-owned land. It was an expensive piece of property right in near Ward Warehouse, by the way, in Honolulu.
Interesting.
The thing that strikes me about this episode, though, or this test, is it's the sort of thing that we will be told later again, and we have been told before in the Torah, that we don't believe in divination. We don't believe in some potion, some magic potion that is going to give us the truth. And yet that's included in this. They don't give the recipe for whatever this water is. It's just mixing the dirt from the Mishkan. And presumably, since the Mishkan is set up every place that they stop, it's going to be different dirt every time if this ever comes up more than once.
I believe the water was from the laver in the
Yeah.
Mishkan.
Well, there's another thing too. We don't have holy water anywhere
It
We
could
don't have
be in
water.
the ink.
It's a psychological thing. It's not
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with the water, any of that. It's the ritual. This woman is being brought in front of men. These are all men surrounding her and putting her on trial. And the psychology of that is to break her down so that if she's guilty, she'll confess.
It could be in the ink because they dip the.
Oh, that's right. They scrape. That's right. They scrape the ink into the. It's just something that is so foreign. Maybe I think you mentioned, Sarah, about the other civilizations that were around, and it sounds like something that would come out of, I don't know, the code of Hammurabi or something like that, rather than our code of how we seek justice.
It's interesting because you can imagine, I mean, there are some very tender-hearted men who wouldn't want necessarily to put their wives through that even if they suspected that there was wrongdoing, because they would not want to, God forbid, put her through that. And then perhaps she wasn't guilty. And that would, whether they ever knew it, whether the public knew it, he would know in his heart that he put her through that. I mean, it's just, there are men who would not do it. I know there are.
Ruth Ellen and then Ron.
Well, I'm just reading again, and that's the thing, and then they repeat it. I don't know if the first time, but it when they're kind of doing their summation, it says this is, oh gosh darn it, I'm sorry. This is the ritual in cases of jealousy.
Right.
Of jealousy. It doesn't talk about. This is when it's saying, I thought this was at the very beginning of this section, but this is when it's reiterating after it tells what it's going to do, but it's pointing out it's about the notion of jealousy. And, if it does get to a sort of like a he said, she said thing, that's why I'm thinking again, if people didn't know what to do, and maybe this does go to being a magician in some way, that the priests had to somehow satisfy the citizens, whatever you want to call them, need to have some resolution to this, and there was no really way to do it. So it came up with this ritual that was probably akin to similar rituals in the area at that time, which is what we don't want to think about. And I think we've done this enough to know that even some of the rabbis and scholars will say some of this stuff is in here because it has to do with, even though we're supposed to be differentiating ourselves by this being chosen from the rest of the other civilizations, we still had to deal with human nature, and that these things were going on in other tribes, in other cultures. And sometimes they had to be addressed within the context of what the children of Israel needed. That's all I can.
But since you referred back to that line, I think this is this also caught my eye when we were reading it, when Marilyn was reading it, is in the beginning it says when a husband accuses or believes his wife, but at the end here, there's no doubt about it. When a woman goes astray while living in her husband's household and defiles herself, it's not when the husband believes that the woman has gone astray.
Chapter. Next paragraph, it says,
the next line, it all goes together.
When a fit of jealousy. So, there's the first caveat, how what is acceptable or what God lays out. But then the second also lays out a room for him to just be, an emotional basket case with jealousy issues from his childhood. Who the hell knows? He had a brother who was 18 months younger and was cuter, or who knows? But
maybe he had a right to be jealous if she actually committed it. So it's saying either or. That's the whole thing. They can't. There's nobody was a fly on the wall, and nobody can. It does come down to
no witness. Yes, it does say no witness. Exactly.
So there again, it's like that's where I think some of these rituals of divination and all that come from, because people want to know.
This inquiring minds want to know. Ron?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go in just a second. I didn't know how long the first time would be. So you can make a reveal.
You picked the longest parsha. We don't know how long it's going to go either.
How long is it normally, too? So I can plan for that, because I have an appointment already.
A couple of hours, depending on the parsha.
Okay. For future, I know I won't be on next week. The following week, I'll be traveling next week. But anyways.
Well, welcome, and you'll get the hang of it.
Okay. Both parties could be. I think it's addressing that either party could be guilty. I don't think it's just a woman. I don't think it's just a man. Jealousy is a sin, flat out sin. And I think
you're absolutely right. I think if the man is not pure, that it won't work. This ritual won't work on the woman either.
So I knew a man that committed adultery, and then for 8 years he stalked his wife, afraid that she was going to commit adultery. finally it came to a divorce. She never did. He did. She
Yeah.
forgave him. And, this is the practical. And the fact is, I just want to bring it to, the application for me. And my daughter, when she was young, starting at about 16, what do you think of this one, Dad? What do you think of this one, Dad? Okay. And I said, well, I'm not going to have to live with them. If I get 2 cents, this is all I care, that he loves God and he loves you. If he loves God with all of his heart, mind, and soul, then he'll love you the way that you should be loved. And I'm looking to make the application today and well, I'm a camper. I can camp and get all these details, but really the bottom line is, how am I going to apply it? And for them, they needed to go into land that was already defiled, polluted. God was going to use them to deal with those people. And would they be a witness to the Egyptians that would go through the land, everyone that would go around? How are we a witness today?
Mm-hmm.
So at that, thank you for the time. And I'll plan in a couple of weeks to be a little longer. And Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Thanks for
Nice to
joining
meet
us.
you.
Thanks. Nice to have you here. I mean, I think that's all of those points are well taken, but I do think we made a lot of effort earlier to say justice, justice, you shall pursue,
Uh-huh.
and that everybody will be treated fairly, and witnesses must be testify, and there are all of these elements that go into deciding guilt, and then we have this magic trick that is going to decide the guilt in this case.
Well, it
And
would
it
work
just
Call
better
on
doesn't
me
if
to
we
it
get
put it
their
doesn't
on the
cut.
men.
it doesn't fit everything else that goes. And what's the difference about it? It's a jealous man,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
And there's no indication that a wife can bring the same claim against her husband before the
Exactly.
priest.
Exactly.
And it's just one of those things that you look and you say, why? If it was included because there was a case like this, and so it came before them, that's one thing. But to make it part of our ritual, it just seems it.
I also think, yeah, this has to do with what Arnie said about being chattel. We keep thinking in modern terms and we don't like it. But
Yeah.
so when, the thigh, the thing about the thigh is actually about whether she's fertile. It's about
Mm-hmm.
her ability to procreate. So obviously back then, some of these things, whether we want to say it's a different layer, there is some practicality to it because mortality, even when they say they would live to be 120 or whatever that means, I mean, people did not live as long. I mean, the ability to procreate and to maintain the population put a different strain on women maybe than it does today. I guess now that I'm saying that, but they had 670,000 people, but that we're not even sure that included the women, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I think at that point in time and in history, there was the ability to bear children is in the background, of the thinking of all behind this, for
Be
what it's
fruitful
worth.
and multiply. Be fruitful and multiply was the command. The
Uh-huh.
command, right? Right. Well,
Well, it made
let's
just as mad today as it did last year.
let's move to the Nazarite. That's the next section here, and keep poor Samson and his haircut in mind as we get this. So, who would like to read next? Vic, can I
can read,
draft
yeah.
you?
Sure.
Okay.
And God spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the Israelites and say to them, if any men explicitly utter a Nazarite's vow to set themselves apart for Adonai, they shall abstain from wine and any other intoxicant. They shall not drink vinegar or of wine or of any other intoxicant. Neither shall they drink anything in which grapes have been steeped, nor eat grapes fresh or dried. Throughout their term as a Nazarite, they may not eat from the grapevine, even seeds or skin.
You just flipped 2 pages.
Oh, okay.
Not you,
Throughout
Al.
Throughout the term of their vow as an Nazarite, no razor shall touch their head. It shall remain consecrated until the completion of their term as a Nazarite. Adonai. The hair of their head being left to grow untrimmed. Throughout the term they have set apart for Adonai, they shall not go in where there is a dead person. Even if their father or mother or their brother or sister should die, they must not become defiled for any of them, since hair set apart for their God is upon their head. Throughout their term as a Nazarite, they are consecrated to God. If someone dies suddenly nearby, the Nazarite shall shave the head at the time of becoming pure, shaving it on the 7th day. On the 8th day, that person shall bring 2 turtle doves and 2 pigeons to the priest at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The priest shall offer one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering, and make expiation on the person's behalf for the guilt incurred through the corpse. That same day the head shall be reconsecrated, and that person shall rededicate to God the term as a Nazarite, bringing a lamb in its first year as a penalty offering. Previous period shall be void, since the consecrated hair was defiled. This is the ritual for the Nazarite. On the day that the term as a Nazarite is completed, the person shall be brought to the entrance of the tent of meeting. As an offering to Adonai, that person shall present 1 male lamb in its first year, without blemish, for a burnt offering, 1 ewe lamb in its first year, without blemish, for a sin offering, 1 ram without blemish for an offering of well-being, a basket of unleavened cake of choice of flour with oil mixed in, and unleavened wafers spread with oil, and the proper meal offerings and libations. And the priest shall present them before the Lord and offer the sin offering and the burnt offering. He shall offer the ram as a sacrifice of well-being to God, together with the basket of unleavened cake. The priest shall also offer the meal offerings and the libations. The Nazarite shall then shave the consecrated hair at the entrance of the tent of meeting, and take those locks of consecrated hair and put them on the fire that is under the sacrifice of well-being. The priest shall take the shoulder of the ram when it has been boiled, 1 unleavened cake from the basket and 1 unleavened wafer. Place them on the hands of the Nazarite after the consecrated hair has been shaved. The priest shall elevate them as an elevation offering before the Lord, and this shall be a sacred donation for the priest. In addition to the breast of the elevation offering and the thigh of gift offering, and that the Nazarite may drink wine. Such is the obligation of a Nazarite, except for that those who vow to an offering to God of what they can afford beyond their Nazarite requirements must do exactly according to the vow, and that they have made beyond their obligation as Nazarites. I think Moses has a lot of time on his hands.
That's funny.
I didn't hear it. What did he say?
I said,
Moses had a lot of time on his hands.
come up with all this stuff. Who sits around and thinks of all this stuff? Oh, that's funny.
But the it doesn't make clear what the Nazarite is or is doing or has to. We got all of those other jobs that the Kohathites and the Merarites and the other ites had to do, but the Nazarite seems to be just taking this kind of vow of a monastic life and no wine and
It is, yeah. It's a state of elevated state of holiness.
Mm-hmm. And is this where we get the business with payas that of not cutting your hair, not
I
cutting
don't
the
know.
hair?
I don't know about that, but I think not cutting the hair in this sense, the hair is sort of a barrier. So you don't worry about how you look. And also when you have all that hair, it's sort of a shield between you and the world, let's say, and the temptations of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And vanity also, and those kinds of things. And not drinking wine, it's the same. And what's the third one? Not drinking wine, not cutting your hair.
Vinegar too. Yeah, and nothing to do with grapes. And let's see.
No.
And not shaving your hair, not cutting your hair.
Well, wine is a byproduct of grapes. So
yeah, and anything to do with grapes. Can't even have raisins.
Yeah.
No oatmeal cookies for a Nazarite.
Right.
But it does say the Nazarite vow. This is from the altar, the notes in the altar translation. A Nazarite is someone set apart.
Yeah.
The word is phonetic and etymological, relative of the word that immediately follows it, neder or vow. So again, it doesn't make clear at least what the Nazarite is doing other than expressing the holiness or vowing to maintain a level of holiness.
I think it's interesting that it follows this idea of the sota.
Mm-hmm.
That, she is possibly overcome into, with temptation. And then now you have this person sort of setting up fences or walls
mm-hmm.
so that he's not tempted, that he's holier. So it's kind of interesting that this follows the last one.
Arnie,
yeah, I was going to ask Sarah if she thought there was any connection between Nazarite and Nazarene.
I don't know. I was thinking that too. I don't think so.
Really?
I mean, a Nazarene comes from Nazareth. I'm not sure on this, Arnie. I don't know.
So it was Nazarite. They had all these other ites, the Amalekites.
Yeah, I think you could be a Nazarite and not come from Nazareth or that part. Anybody could be, a woman could be a Nazarite, right?
Yeah, I was wondering if the root of the word, they were just mentioning the different obligations of the various Levites, and you had the Melchites and whatever, and if Nazar was another of the sons or sub-tribes or something, and that's why it was Nazarite, like Melchite and Miaskite. That was the ugly tribe, the Miaskites.
Narishkite. Oh, I'm sorry.
And the Narishkites, yes.
Yeah.
Sarah, you were asking about the third thing was contact with a corpse.
Yeah, so there again, this idea of putting fences around yourself so that you can lead a more spiritual, holy life and not be, burdened with,
Ruth Ellen, you had said, but before that, Vic, you were about to say something before there.
That's all right. I forgot what it was.
Okay.
I just did a little search because I had gotten the impression that everybody knew what a Nazarite was because it had been mentioned before. But according to Wikipedia, this is the first mention. But I wanted people to note that it says for the term that they have selected. They claim that only 3 people in the Bible took this for a lifetime. That Samson was one from birth. I'm not sure how that happened because I haven't. And
and he got weak when his hair was
Samuel.
Samuel,
and then of course that was because of his mother's vow. Samuel's the one I always think about, and then the third one was John the Baptist.
Well, now that's it, but that's an interesting thing that you just said, Ruth Ellen, because John the Baptist was part of the Essenes who lived that kind of ascetic life.
Right, they were separatists. Yeah.
So that is kind of that is an interesting thing, and they separated themselves, which is against the law, from the Jewish, from the temple and from other Jews, which we weren't really supposed to do, and went out in the desert in their own little cult out there. So, yeah,
But
and they
don't they
only,
think that that the bulk of the Dead Sea Scrolls came from
correct,
the
right. But John the Baptist only ate, I don't know, like grasshoppers and honey or something, right? I mean, he was really out there, and he was every day doing mikvahs in the Sea of Galilee, which is where he met
now
Jesus.
it's more surprising to me that this concept came up out of nowhere in the Old Testament. I guess this is the first time. When we read this, even as we're reading it, I keep thinking, well, there must have been some mention of it in Leviticus or something like that. But
Yeah, feels like there might be a text
maybe
missing.
maybe that's the first time they used the term Nazarite. I don't know. It seems to me there was some notion about if someone voluntarily chose to abstain from worldly things for a while in the
Oh, yeah.
service of Hashem. That's what this all came from, So
I think if
I'm going
it's
to have
for
to look into that a little more.
I think if it's for a while that it's acceptable, but we weren't supposed to go for a lifetime,
So
like
it
just
right.
It wasn't a monastic
yeah,
vow to live your whole life that way,
right.
just a certain term. I guess in order to what? To succeed
Study.
or
To study and to take yourself out of the responsibilities of everyday world, so you had time to pay attention to quote spiritual things, which at some point you need to be in the world to do that, because it's a matter of can I behave in a gracious manner when life is upon me, which when you're by yourself it's to not bother you. My kids, my husband, whatever, they don't get under my skin when I'm not pressed constantly by other people's behavior. It's much easier to do that, but only for a period. I think that's what the understanding was.
But
Right.
I
So
find
that's why you wonder why the ones who were pointed out that did it for life. Samuel, I could understand. That's the one I thought. Samson, what is that? That's in one of the Haftorahs? I don't. Or Kings, maybe. I don't know why he did it from birth, but it brings me to mind what Arnie likes to bring up a lot: the idea of these and we talked about these phantasmagorical stories to keep people's attention. Because is this not like the first this is like Superman? I mean, probably this Superman was probably based on this. That his strength was in his hair. I mean, why these particular ones were exceptions to that rule of temporariness is an interesting question into itself. And then you wonder, is it more myth than biblical archaeology, so to speak?
Yeah, it looks like it's
Superman
from
was
Judges.
created.
Looks like it's from Judges, the
Judges.
Haftarah that has Samson, and an angel appears to his mother when she's hasn't had any children, and that she's
So
to
it
be.
was also through the same. So that is in fact like Samuel. That's true. That's right. Samuel would have been from birth too, is technically, even though she didn't take him to the Lord until he was weaned and all that. So yeah.
But
I think that all three of them are Samuel, Samson, and John the Baptist. I think all three of them are associated with being Nazarites. And in the New Testament, it says that John drank that he didn't drink wine or any kind of alcohol, but it doesn't say anything about him cutting his hair. I don't know if it says anything about Samuel or Samson, but we know that Samson lost his strength, right?
Yeah.
Jesus was a Nazarite, as far as I remember.
Well, I mean,
it was a Nazarene.
I think Jesus drank wine. I mean, didn't he drink
started
wine at the
it
Last
started
Supper?
with water. It started with water. And
Well,
then
that was at the
changed it.
wedding, but also there was
okay.
a Passover feast, which is where the
That's right.
Catholics get,
That's
this is my body, this is my
the
blood, where he
wine,
said, when you drink this, remember me. But he said, when you drink this, I don't know if he drank it himself. So these things are not clear, but certainly, I mean, John living out in the wilderness, the way that they did, and I forget what they ate only he lived on honey, and does anybody remember?
Yeah, I don't know if you saw
Fish.
Craig's notice
Fish.
in the text that he had the
Honeycombs
original
and fish.
farm to table diet. No table, no farm, just wilderness snacks, locusts and wild honey.
Locusts and honey, that's it.
That's
He
not
Exactly.
locust,
he
the
invented
insect.
protein bars.
It's not locust, the insect. It's the carob tree.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's right.
The fruit of the carob tree. Honey
That's
locust.
right. That's right, Alan. You're right.
Arnie,
Yeah.
you had your hand up. Is that?
Can you
what
imagine
is-
how
I
skinny
was
he
just going to circle back to Superman because two Jewish authors, Siegel and I forgot the other guy's name, wrote
Schuster,
it.
Siegel and Schuster.
Yeah, and his dad was Ka'el, and had all these biblical names worked in there.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it was-
amazing.
yeah.
Absolutely. That's why I said it, but I hadn't thought of it recently. But since we're talking about
But in talking about Samson, if you get a chance to read through that, it's brutal. I mean, first of all, he the first thing he does is he sees a Philistine woman and he wants her for his wife, and his father tries to talk him out of it, saying they're not, she's not from us, from from uncircumcised Philistines, and he demands it. He wants this woman as his wife, and defies his parents. And then when he goes into battle, he uses subterfuge to trick the Philistines in so that he can whip them with his jawbone of an ass. And now we get a jawbone of an ass doing different things, but it's just
Like what? Like what?
I don't want to go. We're not going there. Right?
Well,
Sorry.
you're gonna leave me hanging up.
We never heard it.
Like
Turn off Facebook. Let's hear it, Alan.
Do it at the end.
I'm just kidding. You don't have to tell me. I already have a head full
All
of.
right.
My head is already too full of
But
stuff.
it's just it's one of these stories that in the end he when he brings the house down it's he has I guess somehow made up for what he's done, but everything he does is all of the things we're told not to do.
Yeah.
So then, how could he be a Nazarite? Well, you had my understanding that I learned this a long time ago. So it goes with what is said here. I think you had to say, I'm going to do it for a year, or I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
You had to designate a certain amount of time.
But his mother
But Samson and Samuel. Shmuel, they were from birth, right? Dedicated
Yeah.
to God. So it's not clear.
Ruth Ellen?
that's what just hit me. It's like they weren't really Nazarites because they didn't choose it. It's just, but they were
that's a good
following for the
point.
Lord. They're using the term in two different. It's like Class A and Class B stock or something. I mean, when you think about it, and then you could think of what you told me about Samson's story, which if I ever knew, I didn't remember. I mean, this is classic disobeying your parents. This is like King Charles. This is like being in line to be destined to do something when your heart and your mind wants to do something else. And so it's like a morality tale in that way. Obviously it is. And in some ways it's an allegory more than anything else, I would say, from that perspective. So maybe that's the devil's in the weeds there because this mixed metaphor. I don't know where that came from. But that
Interesting.
even though they use the term Nazarites to describe them, they're not like all the others.
Maybe those terms really aren't as different as we are. We're making them. The difference between a Nazarene and a Nazarite. We got to get to the bottom of that.
Well, according to Rabbi ChatGPT, Nazarite refers to an Israelite who takes a vow of consecration, which includes abstaining from wine, not cutting hair, and avoiding contact with corpses, as described in the Torah. In contrast, Nazarene typically refers to someone from Nazareth.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is often associated with Jesus, but not directly related to the Nazarite vow.
Yeah, it's different. But in Judges, it says that this angel tells Samson's mother that he shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb. That's a scripture.
Okay.
So evidently there are exceptions, just like everything else. There are exceptions to the rule. If an angel comes and says you're a Nazarite, that's it. You're
Yeah,
done.
I would think that would do it.
And she came to the mother, and evidently the mother said, okay, so I
I
guess
thought of a good
Samson,
analogy. If either you're born into being a citizen of a country, or you're naturalized.
Or
You're
you choose,
naturalized,
yeah,
you do it
yeah.
by choice,
You
right?
choose it. You choose
So
to,
that's
right,
but you're
exactly.
still a citizen. So maybe that's the term Nazarite. It has these two subclasses.
I think those
But-
are the only two that are considered, though. And it has something to do with them being on having a special mission in their lives, or
An anointing.
some kind. Yeah, maybe they are anointed from birth.
Or
But I don't know. I haven't read Samson in such a long time, and I mean, they didn't live aesthetic lives, did they? Out in the
well,
wilderness or
yeah,
anything
his
like that?
yeah, his story is, it's just, I say
Yeah,
it's
I
brutal.
don't know.
It's brutal. Not to
Yeah.
say he got what was coming to him, but they it was
Maybe the
very,
cutting of the hair. Maybe
yeah,
that's another reason
yeah,
why they think he was a Nazarite.
yeah. Vic,
Anyway,
Vic, you had something to say? No? Okay. I thought saw your hand
It's
up,
all been
so
said.
it's all been said. Okay. Well, we got something. We got something coming up now that it's short, but I think that I think it's important that we read it from the Torah. So, Craig, can I get you to read this next 4 or 5 lines? Let's see. What am I looking at here? Yeah, it's just 5 lines. Just 5 lines.
God spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to Aaron and his sons. Thus shall you bless the people of Israel. Say to them, may the Lord bless you and guard you. May the Lord light up his face to you and grant grace to you. May the Lord lift up his face to you and grant you peace. And they shall set my name over the Israelites, and I myself shall bless them."
So, here we have. And wait a minute, I got a stuck screen. There we go. Here we have the priestly blessing that we include in many of our services, and it's part of our liturgy, and it's very clearly there, taken directly from the Torah, and there's nothing there about the hands being held in a certain way, or the Vulcan, live long and prosper greeting. But I wonder about those choices of bless you and guard you, or best keep you, I guess is one of the translations. Light his face to you and grant grace to you. Lift his face to you and grant you peace.
His countenance, right?
Yes, yeah. Not face, countenance, right, in the translation.
And countenance is more than face to me, anyway. It's got, like your spirit is in your countenance. Or, I mean, maybe I'm just going too far, but I think so.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Marilyn. The connotation is more than just the physical thing on the front of your head.
Yeah.
Countenance goes with all the other counting in this portion of the Torah. I was struck reading it that it switches from talking about the Lord doing something to all of a sudden, I am the Lord, I am doing this. That was a change of tense that much.
According to just looking at the notes in the altar, that there was a nearly identical version of the blessing was found in a dig in a cave in Jerusalem, dating back to the 6th century BCE. So
that's one of my favorite prayers. But there again, but reading it in this context is like, why here, why now? Except to the degree that he was telling the Levites. So that kind of goes back to the beginning of the portion where he's talking about the roles of the different Levites in terms of the porterage and all that. And this also is a commandment of something specifically that the priest is supposed to do. But it really is a hodgepodge. It's like biblical hodgepodge will be with this parsha on Jeopardy, you know.
Well, somebody who talked to about cave makes my heart think about those people in, where are they, Laos? We need to keep those.
The gold miners who were.
Yeah, we have to pray for them. If we didn't include them in our Mishabera, we need to.
Yeah, there's things like that going on many places around the world where people are either not aware of or defy the dangers and go to places like that, I guess.
Yeah, I wondered what are they doing there? You know, just
they were going after gold. I mean, the previous, I guess, some of the rescuers from the Thai group, the soccer team that was in there, that was a sort of a camping trip that the kids that were on, members of a team. So it wasn't something that they were looking out for, or looking for rather, like these gold miners. But yeah, by all means, it's something to think about. But I think that we have several very succinct blessings or passages that have lived on. The Shema certainly is one of them, and we add on to that the other readings that go with it. But it's those two basic sentences that are the heart of the Shema, and in this case, 4 or 5 lines that make up this priestly blessing that really, is encapsulates what we want. I guess what we're this gets to. I think what is, I don't want to speak for Aviva, I know she's researching this, but the next Judaism 101, it's something, looking into something about the purpose of prayer, or what it is, what we're asking for, or what does it mean, or any is it something that we're looking for a specific response when we make a prayer, and I think in the case of these, it's just saying this is what we believe, and this is what will keep us in peace, keep us healthy, keep us safe. And it's not telling us to do anything; it's telling us believe, and these are the blessings.
Well, I mean, believe is the whole, the faith, the issue of faith, which is how you please God. You believe, because if you don't believe, then it's a lot of people don't believe that there's a God, and they live like that sometimes. It helps to know that in your heart that you're not the last word on anything.
But what you're saying, though, does raise the question of, do we do it because God tells us to do it, or do we do it because it's right?
Well, I think those are synonymous, but you may not think that.
Mm-hmm. Well, in some cases, God tells us to kill somebody, and at the same time, we've been instructed that that's not a good thing to do. So everything, I guess, everything's a situation.
I think that's true.
Craig, let me get you to read a little bit more. We have the next part here. This is one that I'm going to take a prerogative, having the host controls here, and not go through a whole thing, because we have a lot of repetition. We have 12 tribes, and this whole thing is repeated 12 times. So let me bring this up, and then we could talk a little bit about it, and then go to the end of it.
On the day that Moses finished setting up the tabernacle, he anointed and consecrated it and all its furnishings, as well as the altar and its utensils. When he had anointed and consecrated them, the chieftains of Israel, the heads of ancestral houses, namely the chieftains of the tribes, those who were in charge of enrollment, drew near and brought their offering before Adonai, 6 draft carts and 12 oxen, a cart for every 2 chieftains and an ox for each one. When they had brought them before the tabernacle, And God said to Moses, saying, accept those from them for use in the service of the tent of meeting, and give them to the Levites according to their respective services. Moses took the carts and the oxen and gave them to the Levites. 2 carts and 4 oxen he gave to the Gershonites as required for their service, and 4 carts and 8 oxen he gave to the Merarites as required for their service, under the direction of Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest. But to the Kohathites he did not give any, since theirs was the service of the most sacred objects. Their porterage was by shoulder. The chieftains also brought the dedication offering for the altar upon its being anointed. As the chieftains were presenting their offerings before the altar, and God said to Moses, let them present their offerings for the dedication of the altar, 1 chieftain each day. The one who presented his offering on the first day was Naso, son of Aminadab of the tribe of Judah. His offering, 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels, and 1 silver basin of 70 shekels by the sanctuary weight, both filled with choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering, 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 bull of the herd, 1 ram, and 1 lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering, and for a sacrifice of well-being 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, and 5 yearling lambs. That was the offering of Nashon, son of Aminadab. On the second day, Nathaniel, son of Zuar, chieftain of Issachar, made his offering. He presented as his offering 1 silver bowl weighing 130 shekels, and 1 silver basin of 70 shekels by the sanctuary weight, both filled with choice flour with oil mixed in for a meal offering. 1 gold ladle of 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 bull of the herd, 1 ram, and 1 lamb in its first year for a burnt offering, 1 goat for a sin offering, and for a sacrifice of well-being 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 he-goats, and 5 yearling lambs. That was the offering of Nathaniel, son of Zuar.
And I don't know what the Hebrew for ditto would be, but that's what it goes on. Then it goes ditto. We get the next tribe. We get the Zebulonites, and then we get, and this is exactly the same thing. The Reubenites, exactly the same things, the same amount of silver, the same amount of flour, and the same animals for sacrifices. So what's the importance of that? That no tribe it is just simply saying no tribe is more important than the other. Each of them
No
gives the.
favoritism.
Say again.
No favoritism, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. In other words, nobody gets to slip an extra 5 in there to get a better blessing out of the deal.
We're all his children, and he loves us all.
But in very typical fashion that we've had in so many other sections of the Torah, there's this repetition. And Aviva is fond of, I'm again putting words in her mouth, but Aviva is very fond of saying that when something is repeated, it's important. So I want to see what your sense of what's important in repeating this same pattern for all 12 tribes.
They each came separately, though. They each arrived at their independently with their offerings. And I'm looking here in my Chumash. It says the numerical value of a silver bowl is 930, corresponding to the years of Adam. Its weight, 130 shekels, corresponds to the age at which Adam and Eve had Seth. 1 silver basin has a numerical value of 520. 500 alludes to Noah's age when his first child was born, and 20 is an allusion to the number of years before that child. Blah, blah, blah.
This reminds me of the song
before that child was born, told, when, I don't know, something about when God told Noah there would be a flood. 70 shekels. Are you interested in this?
Well, I know. I think what's interesting is it makes me think of the song that we do at the Pesach, at the Passover Seder, Echad Miyadea, where we go through, all of the, the God is one, and then and I'm trying to remember the Shnayim, and we go through all of and somebody has found something to relate
Two
to all of
tablets of the
these.
covenant.
But what's fascinating to me is what they're left with. So now we've got the priests or the Levites, and they've got all of these chieftains, and this is the dedication for the altar from the chieftains of Israel upon being anointed. Silver bowls, 12, silver basins, 12, gold ladles, 12, silver per bowl, 130, per basin, 70, totals of silver of vessels, 2,400 sanctuary shekels, the 12 gold ladles filled with incense, 10 sanctuary shekels per ladle, total gold of the ladles, 120, total herd of animals for burnt offerings, 12 bulls, 12 rams, yearling lambs, 12, and proper meal offerings of goats for sin offerings, 12. So we've got all these animals, we have all these bowls, we have all these ladles, and so now suddenly the priesthood has all of this stuff to take care of. Not to mention, all of these animals as well as the stuff. But then we get this final line in this whole parsha. When Moses went into the tent of meeting to speak with God, he would hear the voice addressing him from above the cover that was on top of the Ark of the Pact between the two cheruvim. Thus God spoke to him.
Oh.
And that's
I
how
mean,
it ends.
they all seem pretty wealthy. I know. I'm serious. It doesn't feel like there's any real hardship going on there.
That they have all of this stuff.
They
Exactly.
have all of the stuff and the animals and everything. And I think part of the priestly blessing to bless the people with money or with, stuff. I think that's part of the I don't know where I got that from, but I think I got that from somewhere.
You can't have one group giving more.
Mm-hmm.
It starts fights
And favoritism, and it tilts the scale.
And it's supposed to be done in secret too. Like you're not supposed to be making a show of how much you're
That's
giving.
probably why they came one at a time, right? Marilyn, with what you just said, that would fit that. They didn't do it in front of each other.
Right.
So there's no competitive or arrogance there.
I agree. I just can't find a place to turn my sound on.
I wonder, speaking of turning sound on, that image of Moses getting the voice of God from between the sculptured cherubim on top of the ark sounds like a radio to me.
Oh, interesting. I never thought of that. Yeah.
Well,
very interesting.
Say again.
God's friend can have a radio.
Yeah, right.
That is cool.
You have to know how to tune it in, right? Get the right frequency.
That's amazing.
We've talked about that before. My husband would use the symbolism because it says in other places as well. It's almost more like a battery. You have the positive and negative poles, and in the middle you have the unity, you have the one. We're all aspiring to get back to that one with God, because we're in that image, we're part of it. And this is, I think, the part of the Hebrew Bible where that, if you look at that symbolically that way, corresponds to a lot of the Hindu and unification and equilibrium, quantum mechanics, electricity. It's all energy. Energy is the word.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of maybe the Mishkan was some kind of catalyst for radio waves,
a receiver of
a
some
receiver,
sort.
Yeah, some sort of receiver.
Conductivity, yeah.
I mean, who the hell knows what's out there? Wait a minute, I'm not done. Who knows what's out there in the universe? Like, we don't even know. It's so big. Like, we don't know if there's stuff out there or what's out there. We really don't. And I have never been towards, ETs. I pretty much have shunned that my whole life. But after listening to Neil deGrasse, I kind of feel, like he's opened up my mind to something could be out there. There's so many. Anyway, I don't know. But, I was thinking of the Mishkan as being, like you said, a receiver, Alan. And that's very striking, that idea.
Oh.
Yeah.
Arnie, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, a couple things. I don't remember there being any copper in the construction of the Mishkan, which will be, I think, essential for any electric transference.
Right.
Oh dear.
Yeah, any kid who's ever built a crystal radio set knows that. You've got to
You're
wind the
popping my
copper wire
bubble.
around.
Okay, so
You're popping it.
yeah, yeah, I think that when they say he heard God, we got to believe that it was in his mind, like all the other prophets who hear God and talk to God. Today, we would describe them as schizophrenics. Probably they wouldn't lead such a great life. But back then, they had a different status in the world. They were considered close to God. And I think that's really interesting how much disrespect we have now for people who are tuned in this way.
Yeah.
Tuned in, the key phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how many times have you walked past someone or someone walks past you and you can't see that they have little earbuds in their ears and they're having a conversation?
Or how many times have you
the
walked
voice
by
in their head
with people who don't have those in their ears and they're having a conversation?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Exactly. Well, that gets us to the end of the parsha, and I hope you don't mind that when we go through exactly the same description for a number of lines. I think it was 23 lines that I jumped ahead. I hope you don't mind that we did that, and I hope you don't mind that the way things have been going. We'll have Aviva and Yehuda back and next week, so everything should be much more organized. But what I'm going to do now is I'll take us off the live stream, and if you want to discuss
great,
any...
Alan. Thank you.
Yeah, Alan, you did great.
How many hours does it take you? And then you do the slides every week. You don't even repurpose them from last year. I don't know.
Some of it are. You see, I shuffle them a little bit, so I get some reruns. But I keep hoping that a year later, our memories aren't that good anymore. A year later,
Gosh.